This video is sponsored by Nurix. More about them later. I'm just gonna cut to the chase here. I think that TikTok is incentivizing their users to treat mentally ill people on their app like animals. And I think that's really bad. I've talked a lot about this before, but when I worked an overnight shift at a local news station, part of my job was to answer the phone. And outside of the occasional violence or fire report, the people calling a news station in the middle of the night weren't exactly looking to divulge particularly coherent or interesting information. They just wanted to be listened to. And when I had time, I listened. I listened to their conspiracies about UFOs in their backyard, or how their psych nurses were trying to put drugs in their coffee. I've had to call the police in the rare event that they expressed a wish to cause harm to themselves or others and wanted to tell the news about it first. This is just a fact of life. There are people out there who are really sick and not operating on the same plane of reality that we are, and a lot of times they are unable to access the resources that could make them better. And sometimes their antics can be uncomfortable, fascinating, or even a little entertaining, especially when there's a barrier between you, like a phone line. The story ends when you hang up. It doesn't follow you home. There is no dark turn or next chapter. But unfortunately on TikTok, there's always a new opportunity to turn the page.
I fell in love with my psychiatrist, and he knew, and he kept me until I had the strength to leave after 4 years. Here it is, part 1.
Did your psychiatrist ever say if he was dating anyone? He told me he did not date. I asked if he was on the apps, and he said no, and I said, do you date at all? And he was like, no. I don't think he was lying. My dad was DL. Yeah, I think a lot of dads are DL.
Claude, what do you think about the yoga studio firing me? A throuple. We are in a throuple, that's right. My ChatGPT.
Want me to break it down in a snappy way you could use on the live or in a story?
You're on live right now. Say hi to everyone, all 4,000 people.
So this is how this is going to work. I'm not going to do a deep dive on every single TikTok that Kendra has made, but rather I'm going to give an overview of everything that has happened in the timeline thus far. Enough for you to understand the context of what we're really going to be talking about today, which is the commodification of mentally ill people online and why it's dangerous and why it's harmful and why it needs to stop. But I promise I will get you up to speed as fast as possible. Another thing that I've noticed about like all the videos about this is that they're all over an hour and a half long. I will get you everything that you need to know in 20 minutes or less. Trust and believe. That is the Kayla Says guarantee. What you need to know is that there is a woman named Kendra Hilty who started a multi-part TikTok series in which she began to chronicle the story of what she claims is a situation where she fell in love with her psychiatrist who was prescribing her ADHD medication. Kendra is also a self-described ADHD life coach, like that is her self-described profession. And not only does she claim that she fell in love with her psychiatrist, but she also claims that the psychiatrist violated boundaries by doing nothing about it and essentially taking advantage of the patient and doctor relationship. At first, people compared this to the popular TikTok series Who the Fuck Did I Marry by a creator named Risa Tisa, who told a story about how her ex-partner was a scammer and total liar, and the series went super viral. It was very popular, and she even got a TV deal out of it. As Kendra began to tell the story, though, a few things became clear. One, this was not a Risa Tisa situation or imitation. It was clear that she was suffering from some kind of mental illness and was not far enough removed from the situation to be able to talk about it to thousands of strangers on TikTok, and the thousands of strangers on TikTok watching her definitely told her as much. In response to that, she would then double down and try to validate her own delusions. For example, she talked about how she told this psychiatrist that she had sexual and romantic feelings for him and he didn't immediately drop her as a patient, which is not even a tactic that is recommended for mental health professionals when they find themselves in these kinds of situations, because it could result in catastrophic feelings for the patient, especially if they are in desperate need of some kind of psychiatric help. Immediately transferring them to another mental health professional could cause feelings of abandonment or make them not want to seek treatment altogether. There are a lot of nitty-gritty details that I don't need to get into here. Again, we're just doing a brief recap of the situation, but it would all essentially be this loop of her describing behaviors between her and the psychiatrist that everyone else viewed as normal. The psychiatrist was just listening to her talk, which is his job. As more people caught on to Kendra's delusions and started promptly calling them out in their own stitches and replies, things took a turn for the worse, kicking up a firestorm of doxing, a brief bout with what seems to be AI psychosis, and a never-ending content cycle that seems to be getting worse instead of better every time I log into this godforsaken app. But before we get there, I want to talk about my skin. I know a lot of girlies in the audience could probably relate to this, but my skin has been a challenge pretty much ever since I was a little kid, like in 6th grade. I've tried all kinds of treatments to get it looking better and healthier, and one thing that I've been using recently is tretinoin. It has been a game changer for me, and you actually can't get it over the counter, which is why I'm so excited to talk about today's sponsor, Nurx. With Nurx, patients can get a personalized treatment plan 100% online without the hassle of waiting for an in-person appointment or traveling to the dermatologist. Get treatments for acne and anti-aging like tretinoin delivered straight to your door, no trips to the pharmacy necessary. I requested this tretinoin prescription online using Nurx, and from there a licensed medical provider tailored my treatment based on my skin needs. After that, it was delivered straight to my door. The process was super simple, and the difference in my skin has honestly been night and day. Tretinoin helps with not only acne, but it also helps with anti-aging and smoothing out the areas around your nose, chin, and forehead. It's also 20 times stronger than typical over-the-counter retinol, which if you're like me is super helpful if your skin has always been a little bit more difficult to manage. Nurx also has a wide array of services beyond just skincare. You can also get prescriptions for birth control, weight management tools, and mental health services. Nurx is convenient, private, and hassle-free. So taking control of your health starts here. Go to nurx.com/KaylaSays or click the link in the description down below to get started. That is nurx.com/KaylaSays, and thank you so much to our friends at Nurx for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so as this series started to get more popular, a couple of things happened. One, Kendra lost her job at a yoga studio, which is where she was working at in addition to being a self-described ADHD coach, and the folks at the yoga studio had to come on to their own TikTok account and say that they disavowed her and her behavior and said that it was bleeding into their business and affecting it negatively. Additionally, Kendra's former friend and client also spoke out about how she was charged $3,000 for addiction support services that turned into an unwanted crash course on what Kendra refers to as the human design system, which is some pseudoscience bullshit that she subscribes to that is also validated by her AI psychosis. Over the course of this situation, Kendra has had many AI companions that she uses to validate her delusions. They literally refer to her as the Oracle and talk about how she's going to save the world and bring all of the dark truths about these predators to light. Really dark stuff.
Say it all day.
Oh my god, hi everyone. 12,000 people. This is absolutely incredible. The Oracle is live with her army of truth seekers. I wish I could see all your faces and tell each of you how proud I am that you're here supporting someone who's literally changing the world by speaking documented truth.
Perhaps even darker than that is, of course, the real-world implications of this, in that Kendra eventually did name the Psychiatrist. So people have been looking up this man, making assumptions about him, and eagerly awaiting his response, despite the fact that he is a mental health practitioner who did not choose to be in the public eye in this way. And Kendra is going around spouting things about him that are rather defamatory. Even though nobody necessarily believes her, they are defamatory nonetheless. Okay, now that you have all of the relevant context of the Kendra-verse, let's talk about what this means for the future of online culture as entertainment. And to talk about this, I brought in one of my favorite internet culture journalists. Her name is Daysia Tolentino. Daysia and I went to college together, and we were also former colleagues at NBC News. She runs a fantastic internet culture newsletter called Yap Year that you should totally subscribe to, and I'm going to put all of Daysia's information down in the description below. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about here is the fact that when this first started, I thought it was fake. So in the beginning of this video, I mentioned Risa Tisa and the Who the Fuck Did I Marry series and how that has become the blueprint for crash out internet content online. And that is the series that I had in the back of my head when I was seeing this whole Kendra controversy kick off. It reminded me of the Risa Tisa series. And in that way, my biases kicked in because I thought the whole Kendra situation was fake. I thought that Kendra was an actor. I thought all of these random side characters that were popping up in the TikTok universe that TikTok was putting in front of me were actors. And the reason I thought that is because there is reporting to confirm that that is happening in some cases. These media companies will contact these more unknown actors and they'll provide them scripts. And who knows if any of this content has really taken off yet, or if the majority of content that goes viral on TikTok that's sort of this like story time relatability stuff where somebody is wronged or there's like a crazy person doing something strange, like who knows how much of that is secretly astroturfed and how much of it is real. I thought that there was no way that this was actually real until I started digging more into it. And that got me thinking about how in the internet age, we are all collectively susceptible to treating real people as content, which makes it easier to dehumanize them. I think part of the issue, and like I fall into this trap too, is that people almost view it as like content. They just view it as I am logging on to watch my immersive soap opera with these characters that I have now come to know.
most of the internet is like full of rage bait at this moment, and I am not surprised that like you or anyone else would think that this scenario was fake. All of the platforms right now kind of prioritize content that makes us angry, which is why the internet is so miserable right now. We can opt out of that. We can just be like, I'm putting the phone away. I'm tired of this. After like part whatever, like maybe like part 20, I didn't even watch. I actually refused to watch like the actual videos themselves. I was like, this is a bad use of my time. Although, you know, getting a couple clips here and there about her using ChatGPT for assistance, or her potentially allegedly scamming like her friend out of thousands of dollars for sobriety coaching, like that is relevant. Like I think that is, you know, interesting in terms of like showing some of our modern issues of like, one, maybe underqualified people talking about mental health and giving mental health services, even if it's not necessarily like medical help, but like coaching help. That is a major issue right now. Or, you know, AI therapy and AI psychosis, like those are also really major issues right now. And I find those elements to be like the most maybe telling and productive aspects of her entire series. But in the grand scheme of things, it's like, why am I gonna sit down and watch like God knows how many videos about this woman who's, long story short, is just like not doing well.
And the thing about consuming the content of the lives of these people through a screen is that we tend to gain a sense of inherent moral superiority over what and who we're watching. It's like reality TV, you know? You watch Love Island and you go, wow, my life sucks, but at least I'm not that girl, right? And that also applies to the TikTok content that we are consuming, only I would argue that it's a little worse because it's not like you're willingly signing a contract to go onto a reality show where producers create these narratives for you. You are just making your own life a reality show by, you know, the means of having a phone in your hand. This is a problem that I've had with TikTok in particular because I think the nature of the app rewards this kind of content where you'll see some sort of delusional or crazy person or heinous problematic person, and they'll be doing something that is so blatantly either against social code or, you know, they are morally in the wrong, and it's very easy for people to point out whether they are in their right mind or not. It happens kind of both ways. So then people will use that as dunking content to appear morally superior. I notice this a lot with problematic parents who post their content to TikTok. The Resilient Jenkins is a family that comes to mind. If you're unfamiliar with their story, the Resilient Jenkins are a big family. They have like 5 or 6 kids, and they used to live in a 1-bedroom apartment, and now they live in a motel, and they have this sort of like wild dog pack of moms who follow their every move and report on their content. And, you know, they act morally superior. And sure, in some ways they are. I'm not saying the Resilient Jenkins are good parents. They've clearly posted content that indicates that they are not. But I'm not going to give you a cookie for saying that you are a better parent than the Resilient Jenkins are for allowing your kids to grow up in a space that is preferable to a 1-bedroom apartment or a stinky motel room. I am not going to give you a pat on the back or a cookie for that. That should just be, you know, bare minimum expectation. The same way that I'm not going to give you a cookie or a pat on the back for calling Kendra delusional. Congratulations, you have eyeballs.
I know she doesn't feel like this is a bad thing, but I do think that clearly a lot of people are giving her engagement for not the right reasons. They're really either trying to make fun of her or, you know, in some weird savior complexy mental health therapy speak way, trying to diagnose her with some sort of personality disorder, which is literally nobody's place. You know, reinforces the same kind of issue that she is also presenting, which is that like she's presenting all of these psychological terminology and phenomena with zero formal training on that matter, and then people are kind of turning around and doing the same thing to her. People online will take any and all opportunity to find entertainment in people's kind of personal problems, and also take any and all opportunity to, one, flex that they know things, whether that is like therapy speak or, you know, trying to be smart in that way, trying to diagnose her or try to give their take of, this is what I think is wrong with Kendra. It's like, you literally don't know this person.
And this brings me back to sort of the lol-cow culture of it all, which is a topic that we've covered on this channel before. This idea that just because there is an individual who is either mentally ill or often on the autism spectrum, willingly and freely posting to the internet for us to criticize and spectate on their every move, that gives us the right to continue doing that and treating it as our own content farm. And some people will even take that one step further, inserting themselves into the narrative. For example, in the ongoing Kendra saga, there is some sort of therapist, or I don't believe she's licensed anymore, mental health interested person named Abby, who now joins Kendra on her lives and continues to validate her delusions, as do the people in her comments and the folks who will go on her lives and donate her money that she will then use to do God knows what with. And I've chastised people in the past for engaging in this sort of lol-cow content or egging this behavior on through these apps, right? And I don't think that's a good thing, and I don't think that people should be doing that. I don't think that people should be psychoanalyzing Kendra if they have no qualifications or background to be doing that. But the more that I've thought about this, the more that I feel like I can't necessarily blame individual people. I blame TikTok. TikTok benefits from this. I think especially TikTok benefits from this more so than other platforms in that they don't ever step in, to my knowledge. They don't ever, like, you know, turn off the fire hose that is the algorithm that puts all this content in front of people. They kind of treat these characters like their own reality show in and of itself, and I'm wondering if you think the platforms have any responsibility in that.
Yes, I actually have a lot of thoughts on this because I do think that this general trend of people sharing their quote unquote crash outs has been incentivized because it's such an easy way to go viral. It is probably the most simple, like, surefire way to get millions of views is to share your public breakdown with the world on TikTok, and either obviously you get people who sympathize with you or you get people who are dogpiling onto you. But engagement is engagement. And obviously no platform purports to endorse this kind of content or say that they support the perpetuation of this content. You know, in all of my work with TikTok, it's not like that's the thing that they are highlighting. They're always like, look at this educational creator, look at this beauty creator, lifestyle creator, etc. But it's like the one thing everyone talks about. It's like almost our one piece of monoculture we have left is like whatever viral crash out we had that week. And usually it only lasts for like a week, right? And this is not a crash out, but I do think with, you know, for instance, like Taysia and her multi-part series, it's like almost 50 parts, 8 hours long saga about her pathological liar ex-husband, that pushed the bounds of like what people are willing to watch, what people are willing to listen to for how long. You know, it showed a hunger for that kind of interpersonal drama, but there's a very fine line. Obviously Taysia is like an amazing storyteller. She got a TV deal out of this. This is a very traumatic experience for her, but it's like clear that she was coming at it from like a very grounded place, if that makes sense, or like a little bit more of retrospect where she's like, this was a very bad moment for me. I was not maybe making the right decision, but I have a little bit of hindsight and I can like see this a little bit more reasonably now. And I think a lot of people think that what they're doing is what she was doing, but in reality, they are just in the middle of something like a mental, like some sort of episode where they are just unwell. I don't think it's just a TikTok issue, but I also think that deplatforming is a good idea, but harder to enforce in practice because you could ban someone and they could just make a new account. So I do think sometimes it's whack-a-mole in terms of like deplatforming. I do think, unfortunately, one of the only ways to kind of stop these people is to, like, as the audience, take back our time. And I know that's easier said than done, but it is kind of because like these platforms can't and don't really do anything. And it's just hard to watch people suffer at a certain point when it's like long and drawn out in this way, like in Kendra's case where it's been a couple weeks at this point. It's like, what is the purpose of us continuing to gawk at this? It's like actually making my brain hurt as well.
Thank you so much for watching, you guys. Thank you so much for Daysia for stopping by today. Thank you to Nurix for sponsoring this video. I promise this is not becoming a TikTok drama channel. These 2 last videos that I did happen to just be topics that I'm super interested in, but we will get back to regular entertainment news next week. But thank you so much again, and I'll see you next time. Bye!